Hey guys, so today I'm going to go ahead and go through the bone and bone landmarks that we have to memorize for the first half of the semester. What I'll do is kind of explain its orientation and kind of little tips on how I'll remember where things are and how if it's left or right. Also, I haven't fully memorized the list yet. I know where they are, but I don't know the words. So what I'm going to do is I have the list right behind the iPad. So if I'm looking that way, it's not because I'm awkwardly looking at you, it's just I need to look at the list. So anyway, I hope this helps people out. Also, in the description below, I'm going to go ahead and put the times at which I am talking about which bone. So then that way you guys can just fast forward to whichever one you want to go to, okay? All right, so here we go. Which is the sternum. This only has 4 parts that we need to know for now. And so we'll start. We'll go ahead. We have the manubrium right up here, this superior portion. And then inferior to that is the body. And then below that you have the xiphoid process. Okay, and then this superior portion of the manubrium right there. Let's go ahead. Yeah, just like that. That is known as the jugular notch of the manubrium bone. Okay, I like to remember that because if I think of kind of where my sternum is, so right here you feel that there's your jugular notch, and it's where the jugular veins are headed, okay? All right, next, the clavicle. First off, let's go ahead and figure out if it's left or right. I like to use this. I'm going to check here. So I know my jugular notch right here is 2 bumps. This is where the clavicle attaches to the sternum. These bumps are these right here. This is the sternal facet right there, okay? And now as you continue here, continue laterally, you notice that the bone will jut out first, kind of go outward first, and then go inward. Now, if you face it, so here, if you face it like that, there we go, okay? You notice that this portion juts out first and then comes in. So you know that since this is medial, you want this portion anterior, okay? Just like that. And to make sure if your superior or posterior positioning is correct, you want to go ahead and check here. Right there, there's a process right there. I will go ahead and turn it so you guys can see, yeah? Even in the posterior or inferior view, posterior and inferior view, you see that is the conoid process. Now I know we have conoid, coronoid, and coracoid, and they sound very similar. One way that I'm going to remember that this is the conoid process is that the clavicle is the smallest bone that we are studying, and the conoid is a smaller word than coracoid and coronoid. So conoid process right here, okay? And that will always be in the inferior position, inferior and posterior position, okay? So let's go ahead and cut through the parts of the clavicle. You have, as I said earlier, the sternal facet, which connects to the sternum, and then superior to that, this long part is the shaft of the bone, and then on the lateral side, okay, is the acromial facet. This is what connects to the acromion of the scapula. Now, let's have an inferior view. Here, there's a groove right here. That portion right there, that is known as the subclavian groove. And then earlier we pointed out the conoid process. Now this last one's a little tricky. So we have the conoid process, and then we have the acromion, right? Here you will find the trapezoid line, okay, right there. Okay, and that would be your left clavicle. And now we are going to go ahead and work on the humerus. Okay? So to orient this, you want, there's a nice big fossa here, right? That is where the olecranon of your ulna connects to the humerus, right? That will always be posterior. This is the olecranon fossa. So this, go ahead, you want it posterior, and then you want to get the head of the humerus. That's where it attaches to the glenoid cavity of the scapula, which means this would be my left humerus, okay? So let's go ahead and go down through the humerus. So you have the head of the humerus, and then anatomically, right, when we have our head, we have the neck, right? So the same idea here, there you go. That is the anatomical neck of the humerus. And then down here, where my fingers are going around, is the surgical neck of your humerus, okay? And then you go ahead and look here. This is, you can kind of feel it out here, yeah? Right there on your humerus. That is the greater tubercle. And then anterior to that, let me turn it so you can see that sticking out, right? That is your lesser tubercle. Now, in between it, between these two, there's several ways to describe this area. I like calling it the intertubercular groove because it's in between the tubercles, but they also call it the intertubercular sulcus or the bicipital groove. It's on the paper, so you can use either one, okay? And now as you continue down, you're going to feel two ledges here, right? There's two ledges. Now, which one is medial and which one is lateral? So you use this as a reference. This ledge here is medial. So this is the medial lip of the intertubercular groove. In contrast, you have the more lateral one, right? That would be the lateral lip of the intertubercular groove, okay? As we continue on, there is this, this bump right here. Now, which muscle do you remember being here? That would be the deltoid. So this tuberosity is the deltoid tuberosity, okay? Now, let's go ahead and take a posterior view, okay? So this is still your greater tubercle. Now there are certain facets to it. You have the superior facet, okay? Superior facet, let's use the finer pointer. Superior facet, middle facet, and the inferior facet of the superior tubercle. So they're all part of the superior tubercle, but the facets being a flat articulate, the flat articulating surface. So superior facet, middle facet, and inferior facet. Okay? And since we're in the posterior view, we can go ahead right here. Okay, right here is your radial groove, okay? Where is it? You have your deltoid tuberosity on the lateral portion, and on the posterior portion, you have your radial groove, okay? Now, we'll go ahead and take back the anterior view. Let's go ahead and look here. You can, let's use it this way. So, we want to find the lateral epicondyle and the medial epicondyle. So using the head as a reference, this is my medial epicondyle, and this is my lateral epicondyle. Okay, now let's go ahead and come closer. So next to my lateral epicondyle, the bigger bone, I guess if you can see it there, right, is the capitulum. There you go, the capitulum. So capitulum is next to your lateral epicondyle. In contrast, your medial epicondyle is next to the trochlea. Okay? And then as you look through here, there's a nice little fossa there. That would be the coronoid fossa. Okay? Coronoid fossa. Now let me go ahead and give you a posterior view. This is what we used earlier to reference ourselves in terms of if it's right or left, in the posterior view, you will find the olecranon fossa, and that is where your ulna will attach to. Okay? And that would be the humerus. And now we're going to go ahead and continue on with the scapula. Okay, so it would be this one, this bone right here. Okay, so again, first thing first, how do we orient this? Well, I like to look at the glenoid cavity right here. I know that this attaches to the humerus, which means it has to be on my lateral side. Okay, and then you want to check for the spine of the scapula, which is right here, this long jutting outline, which is on the same side as the acromion, right? Earlier we were talking about, where's my clavicle? Where is my clavicle? Right here, right here. Okay, so my clavicle, the acromial facet, right? This thing, the acromial facet will attach to the acromion, okay? So this is the acromion, and along its line is the spine of the scapula. Now, anatomically for us, where is our spine? It's in the back, or it is posterior. So in the same way you want your spine of the scapula to be posterior, and then you want the glenoid cavity to be lateral. So I know that this is my right scapula. Okay, now we can go ahead and go through the landmarks. So on my right scapula, earlier we talked about the acromion, where the clavicle will attach. Next to it you have the coracoid process. It's another process up here. You have the glenoid cavity right there, and then underneath it, right there, yeah, is the infraglenoid tubercle. So infra meaning inferior, glenoid, so inferior to the glenoid, and tubercle. And it's hard to see here. I'll probably try and get a picture. Above it, there's a bump as well, the same like bump, but it is above it, so it is the supraglenoid tubercle. Okay, continuing on, you have the right here. Oh, I have friends. Anyway, you have. Sorry about that. I'm gonna just close that. Continue on. So we did that. Okay. So you see this little V notch? Yeah, right there. That is the suprascapular notch, right? So we were learning before that a notch is a U or V-shaped indent, right? So there it is. All right, continuing on, you have here, there's a fossa right there, right? That is the supraspinous fossa, okay? Supraspinous fossa. And then anterior to that and inferior to the suprascapular notch is the subscapular fossa. Okay? And now when you have a posterior view, you have the infraspinous fossa. Okay? Now here's your anterior view again. Now this is your glenoid cavity. This is, which side would this be? If this is my glenoid cavity, this would be my lateral side, also known as the lateral border, okay? Lateral border. And then, down here you have the inferior angle. Then here, since this is medial, correct? This is the medial border. And then you have, on the same side as your coracoid process, is the superior angle, okay? And now, one last thing, you have the lateral, we were talking about the lateral border. The lateral border, right, okay, there, it goes up here into your lateral angle, right there. So the lateral angle can be found in between your acromion and the spine of your scapula. So right here, right there is your lateral border. No, lateral angle. That is your lateral angle. You use the lateral border to find your lateral angle. Okay? And that would be your scapula.